Hi, I'm Assistant Professor Aditi Mathur, International Schools of Business Management, Suresh Ganvia University, Jaipur. And in today's video lecture, we will learning about demand forecasting. So what is demand forecasting? It is actually the activity of estimating the quantities of a product or a services that consumer will purchase. So when you forecast or when you estimate the demand of your particular good or services, that you predict that according to you that the customers will purchase from your institution or from your organization, that is what is known as demand forecasting. So, demand forecasting actually involves techniques including both informal methods such as your educated guesses, your quantitative methods such as using of the historical sales data or current data from the test markets. So, you involve both the type of knowledge to calculate your demand. Demand forecasting may be used in making pricing decisions, in assessing future capacity requirements, or in making decisions on whether to enter in a new market or not to enter in a new market. So you have already, understood that whenever there is a product launch, there is a test marketing, and in that test marketing, what the people do is that the organization collect the data that how much demand will be there as per the test market, and then on that basis the calculations are done, the adjustments are done, and this is a part of your pricing strategies to understand the pricing of a product and part of launching your product or services. So demand forecasting is really very important for us to know that how many units according to you the customers will buy, because on that basis itself you will predict your future profits, and also you will be ordering the raw materials for the production, right? So if you feel that in the upcoming month your demand will be approximately 50,000 units, so you have to make the arrangements of the raw material, the needed labor, the packaging material, the transportations, right? So that all decisions will also be a part of or a base will be by the demand forecasting. So that is why calculation of a demand forecasting becomes really very important to understand the nitty-gritties of your pricing strategy, your transportation, your raw material, your manufacturing system, your other calculations in the entire production process also. It may be used in making pricing decisions, and it is also helpful for us to do these strategies of sales as well. So if you feel that in upcoming month the sales will be not as per the expectations or the customers will not buy, so you might like to come up with new offers of buy one get one free or somewhat like that. You will like to adjust so that you have a smooth base of sale for the entire year. So this demand forecasting helps you out in many other ways. So and that is why it is really very important for us to understand how to calculate the demand. So, if we first look on the definition of demand forecasting or the meaning, it means a forecast is a prediction or an estimation of a future situation under given conditions. So, you like to make the estimations or you like to come up with the predictions under different situations or the conditions which are there in front of you. Generally, we have divided our forecasting mechanism into the two parts. One is your passive forecasting, and the another one is your active forecasting. As the name suggests, the passive forecasting and active forecasting means the same. The way it has to be done on the basis of the corrective actions whether the company will take or not. So let us just first understand what do we mean by your passive forecast. So where the product prediction about future is based on the assumptions that the firm does not change the course of its action, that type of forecast becomes your passive forecast. That means there is no changes in the actions, in the assumptions for the calculation of the future. But when you take the active forecasting, it is just the opposite of the passive one. It is where the forecasting is done under the conditions of likely future changes in the actions of the firm. So when you are making the calculation with considering few changes or with considering few future expected changes, and you have taken some action and then you estimate it, that becomes a part of your active forecasting. But when you do the calculation the same way it is going on, there is no future changes, there is no course of action you have taken out, and then calculating your demand, that becomes your passive forecast. Generally, business firms are interested in both your passive and active forecast. So your both types of forecast are taken into the consideration by all the organizations up and down, so that they can have a clear picture or estimated pictures of both the situations, right? Because you see, future is always uncertain, it is full of unpredictability. You cannot predict it, you cannot analyze it, you cannot have the exact data or exact interpretation. So there is no harm to have the data of both the types, that is your passive and active. And on that basis, if you are pre-prepared, right, you are already ready with all the situation, it helps you out to run your organization with more ease. And that is why organization take both the forecast into the consideration. So sales forecast is an estimate of sales during a specific future period, which estimates it's tied to the proposed marketing plan, assumed a particular set of uncontrollable and competitive forces. So this is the definitions of the sales forecast. So the estimated sales which you're going to make will be a part of your sales. So now let us just first discuss the basic importance of your demand forecasting. That means, what are the reasons for which you do the demand forecasting? Why you have to do the demand forecasting? The first one is the crucial to suppliers, manufacturers, and retailer. So to know demand, that means indirectly you know how much raw materials you have to order, how much you have to manufacture, or how much you have to ask from the retailers to have the stock with them. Because according to you, the demand will be let's say 20,000, and you think that the 20,000 units in a particular area will easily be sold out. So you will actually like your retailers, your wholesalers to have that much amount of stocks of goods, so that your needs of the customers can be met, and you does not lose any of your customers. Because we know that we have a good competition, right? And in competition, if you don't buy the product of A as a customer, you will directly shift to the product B. You will like to have the competitor's product. You won't wait, you won't wait for the 2 days also that the stock will be replenished and you will have it. You will just shift it to the another product, another company. So you don't want to lose your customers, and for that your demand forecast also becomes really vital, right? And that is why you need to forecast your demand. One of the ways to predict the estimated raw materials is with the help of your demand forecasting. I have explained to you in our previous slide, but still just have a recap. Let's just assume that our 1 unit of output requires, for say, um, 1 unit of output requires 20 kgs of your input. So this is your input data, this is your output, right? So now you are predicting future, and as per your calculation, the demand in the upcoming month, let's say December 2021, will be approximately of 20,000 units, right? So you think that 20,000 units will be sold in the month of December 2021. So what you will do it, you will pre-handly calculate the inputs. That means 20,000 of output is required. That means you require 4 lakhs of kgs of input. So you will, try to accumulate, or try to order the inputs pre-hand. You will try to fix your suppliers. You will try to let them know that I will be in need of 4 lakhs kgs of this material X or material Y to produce my output. And for that, the raw materials will be required, let's say in the August itself or in September. So please be ready with that. So this demand forecasting helps you out to do these types of critical calculations as well. The another benefit of, or the importance of demand forecasting, is that it helps you out in taking the business decisions. So your demand forecastings help you in taking the crucial business decisions, like whether to continue with this product or not, whether to be within this business or in this industry or not. Because when you predict your future, right, you do the future demand analysis, you come to know the number of units which will be there to be sold out, right? So if you see and you have just noted a pattern that your demand is reducing, that means that you have to either come up with a new brilliant idea so that your business can, be taken into the high sky, or otherwise you are going to dip down and your business might clash. So you have to take these types of decision, and your demand forecasting becomes the first stage to let you know these information, and then you decide what to do, what not to do. In this situation itself, where you have predicted that you need 4 lakh kgs of the raw material, then the question will come that from where to buy, at what rate to buy, how much quantity to be ordered in, let's say, month of November, in, let's say, month of August, September, how the production cycle will take place, right? Who will be producing, which unit of your production house will be producing this for 20,000 of units, right? So these all decisions are, supported with your demand forecasting. And that is why demand forecasting also becomes one of a very important aspect or a tool to take the decisions of the business. The third important role which a demand forecasting do is that it helps you out in planning for the future finished goods. So as I have told you that for the future finished goods, you have estimated that, let's say, in Rajasthan, you need to sell 20,000 units. So you will collect the data for the entire India, and then you will come up with the final answer that how many units of the finished goods you needed, right? So this is also done with the help of demand forecasting. Accurate demand forecast leads to efficient operations and high level of customer service. So when you have the accurate data, that means then whenever the customer will go and demand your product, and the shopkeepers, the retailers, the wholesalers will be easily able to give up the product or sell the product, that time it becomes a very good level of customer satisfaction as well. And when you know that you have to produce 20,000 unit in upcoming month, so that means that from pre-hand, from before itself, you will be having this thing in your mind, and you will definitely like to maintain that quality. All of a sudden coming to know that you have to produce 20,000 units just a next day itself, it will definitely reduce your quality. But when you know it before itself, you have a good amount of time in your hand, you have the data, you have the raw materials, definitely your quality will be taken into the consideration, and that will increase the customer services level also. So definitely, let's take an example of your situation when you need to buy a cold drink. And let's say you have a party and you need to buy 20 liters of Coca-Cola, right? So when you go into the market and you demand that I need 20 liters of the Coca-Cola, if your retailer says that, no, I don't have the 20 liters, I just have, let's say, 10 liters. So then what you will do? You will say, okay, give me 10 liters of Coca-Cola and 10 liters of Pepsi. I'll just balance it, or 10 liters of some other drink, right? So that means actually the firm have lost that 10 liters of the business which they would have made it if the production would have been in the best way and the retailers had that amount of goods with them, and they would have earned the profit of 20 liters, but right now they are earning just the profit of 10 liters. So this is how the production or the demand forecastings help you out to analyze your data. Then if I talk about the last but the very important for importance of the demand forecasting, it is that it improves the quality and efficiency of the product. Definitely it does that. If you have observed your trend and you come to know that my trend is increasing, and that is because of the quality of my product, right? So definitely you will like to maintain that quality, or you will like to improve it, you will like to make it much better and better, so that the customers are there with you, they does not get distracted with the offers or the other commitments given by the other clients or the competitors, right? So for that reason also, you like to improve your quality, you like to improve the efficiency of your product, so that the customers turn into your loyal customers, right? So that is how you do it. So you just check the demand forecasting, you keep on calculating, and it helps you out to analyze your data much better. So levels of forecasting, if we talk about, there are 4 levels of forecasting. So the first level is your macroeconomic forecasting. That means that you are doing the forecasting at a global level or at a macro level, large level. Census surveys are an example of your macroeconomic forecasting. Your Young India surveys by CNN is a part of your macroeconomic forecasting. Then come industry demand forecasting. So it is getting narrowed down. First it is macro, then you are coming up to the industry demand forecasting. So industry demand forecasting examples are your Tata's West Side has conducted a survey in 1997 about the retail marketing before starting up the West Side retail outlets on December 15th, 1998. So that survey which the Tata did, so that they can start up or not to start up their new plan of starting the West Side, the retail store, which is one of the India's leading fashion with stores right now. So that decision, that survey was your industry demand forecasting. It was at the level of industry which they were doing it. So we have learned the macro, then we have learned the industry, and now it comes the firm demand forecasting. So every firm have their own analysis, have their own data collection. What generally firms do is that they ask all their retailers or their wholesalers to send the data, and on that basis itself they calculate it, that on an average how many units you sell it per month, or what is the average demand as per your market area. And when the firm is doing the calculation for their product itself, for their company, it becomes the firm demand forecasting. Then comes the product line forecasting. This product line forecasting helps the firm to decide which of the product or the product should be the priority in the allocations of firm's limited resources. P&G, whether to produce more of the hair shampoos or to produce the Tide or the soaps. So what happens is that the companies are nowadays MNC firms, right? They are not sticked onto the one product or a single product. They produce more than one product. They have a very good product line with that. So if a company do the product survey of checking out the shampoos, whether to create whether to manufacture Pantene or to do it only Head and Shoulder, because they both are a part of your shampoos, right? So which one to be given the higher priority? So for that, your priority level will depend on the forecasting of the demand. The company or the product or the brand with the high forecast will be given the priority. Priority in the sense of your resources distribution, your raw material distribution, your decision making priority, that which decisions are to be taken first, whether the head and shoulder product or for the Pantene. So these all becomes a part, or they are supported by the demand which you are estimating or forecasting. So if we just wind up with the levels of forecasting, we have 4 levels of forecasting: macro, industry, firm, and then the product line forecasting. So we have a funnel type thing in which we are narrowing down our market. So first is your macro, then industry, firm, and then a specific product line forecasting. Now let us just understand the approaches to forecast. So basically, the forecasting is done with the 2 approach. One is qualitative and the quantitative. And we need to learn both the approaches of forecasting, that is qualitative and quantitative. So the methods of forecastings are divided into 2 parts: qualitative, quantitative. It depends on the organizations as well. If the firm is very new into the market, they are very small base, they might just go up with one of the methods, or they might go up with a combination like 2 of qualitative, 1 of quantitative, or 3 of qualitative, 1 of quantitative. It can be permutation combinations as well. So let us just first understand what do we mean by the quantitative methods and what do we mean by the qualitative methods. So if we talk about the quantitative methods are the methods which have your numerical and statistical data, right? So the numerical and statistical methods of the forecasting demand is your quantitative methods. These methods are more objective, more realistic, and more reasonable, because they deals with the numbers, they have the facts to support their predictions. But if we talk about the qualitative methods, it is subjective, based on the judgments of the managers, subjectives, and based on the personal judgments also, right? So it is does not support a realistic approach. It is like, as a manager, I feel that my product will be 20,000 in the upcoming month. It will get sold, but at that same time, another project manager or another manager might say, no, it's not 20, it is 27,000 or maybe 30,000. So that varies because of the judgment levels changes, the perception, the understanding, the observations of the decision makers changes. So it is not that much reliable in comparison to your quantitative, because the quantitative methods give you the basic guidelines. It gives you the data to support the answer, and that is why the quantitative methods are given more priority in comparison to your qualitative methods. As I have said it before itself, both the combinations of any of the qualitative or quantitative can be taken into consideration by the organizations so that they can understand the demand forecasting. So let us just first focus on the quantitative methods. So we are having 3 basic quantitative methods which we are going to study. The first one is your trend projection method. The second one is your leading indicator method, and then your consumption level method. As you can see, the terminologies themselves are somewhere down the line related with the numbers, with the data. That's why it is part of your quantitative methods. Let us just understand all the 3 methods one by one. But before that, let us just first focus on the qualitative methods. As we know, the qualitative methods means what? They are the methods which does not have any of your data collections, right? So data collection in the terms of number. So if you look at the first qualitative method, it is your survey of buyer's intention. So you do the survey. You send the people to collect the data with the help of surveys or the interview. If you remember, you go to any of the malls, right? And you are just passing out through one of the lanes, and then the people will be there to stop you and ask you that, are you free for 2 minutes? Will you help me out to give your feedback, right? Or help me out to complete this survey form. I'll just ask you a couple of MCQ questions, and you can read the product or rank them up as per your convenience. What is that? That is your survey of buyer's intention. You are trying to learn with the data collected that what will be the intention of the buyer in upcoming market or in upcoming time, right? And well-defined buyers and the limited in number becomes the one of the characteristics of this survey of buyer's intention. So you generally take the data from those who are purchasing the product at that time. So advantages, if I talk about this method, it is your simple and easy. You just don't have to do, you just have to employ few of the people with the forms and the pen, and they will be collecting the data while people are doing the purchases, and then they can be, easily be, sorted out and analyzed. But if you talk about the disadvantage of this method, the buyer might not change their opinion. They might change their opinion. So as a buyer, right now I'm buying a product and I felt that, yeah, this is okay, I can buy this, and that at that very moment there is a lady who have asked me out that whether are you going to buy this product or not, can you help me out in filling the form. So out of courtesy or out of humanity, I might say, yes, I like this product, and I appreciate the quality, I will rank it to the base, I always buy this product. And after a few minutes, when she sees that that lady has went and she was checking the prices of the other products, and she felt that there is another competitor in the same segment with selling the same product with the low or the comparatively better price, I'll change it. So that means that my mind, my opinion as a buyer will change, and it will not be same. So I might not stick on the words or my commitments which I have done right now. It will keep on changing. There is no enforcement on the buyers to buy that much, right? So there is no enforcement. Buyers might over or underestimate themselves. Like I might say that I like to buy 2 kgs of sugar per month, but there might be a situation where I might go for 3 kgs, or I might just buy a 1 kg. So that way the things changes. So this survey method have both the advantages and disadvantages. But the point to remember, survey method is a part of qualitative one. Testing marketing, it is also a part of your qualitative. In this, the research method is heavily preferred when the company offers a new product to the market. So when you come up with a new product, you come up with a new innovation, you come up with a new product line, you go for the test marketing, right? Instead of producing that product at a large scale, you first produce it at very small scale and then sell it to in a particular area or to particular customers on the end, and try to get that their feedback, their reactions, their understanding, and on that basis, on that calculation, on that feedbacks, you improve your product, and then you produce it at the large mass level, and then you launch it for the entire place or the target audience. So that test marketing is also one of the methods in calculating your demand forecasting. So before offering the products to the market, marketers need to get real feedbacks from market. Marketers means to choose a region, specific region, or a storage to test the product in the real market conditions. If we talk about the advantages, it provides a real feedbacks about the customer reactions and need estimates upon them, right? And you can really make the estimations on the reactions, or feedbacks which you have received during the test marketing. But the disadvantages is that no control over who will purchase our new product, right? So there is no control. That you might be seeing those people also who are not counted in your predicted line, that this category of people are also buying. We were not knowing that they can also buy our product. So that is also one of the disadvantages, that there is no control over who will buy your new product. Rivals might get aware of it, and company lose all of its competitive advantage. So when you do your test marketing, at that very moment, the rivalry companies or the business people will come to know that, okay, this company is coming up with a new product. They have innovated this. At that very moment, they will tell their research and development department or their marketing team to come up with a new strategy or new innovative product, and give you a good competition. So that competitive advantage which you were trying to build up will not be there with you if the timely decisions are taken by your competitors. So test marketing have this advantage. So if you want to launch your product without giving a time to your competitors, you will just do it. But if you want to have a better understanding of your product, or you want to have a good understanding of your feedbacks, then you will go for the test marketing. And trust me, every good business people or the manager will tell you how to go for the test marketing first, because it is very important for you to analyze the market, the analyze the mood swings, the analyze the preferences and tastes of the customers, that whether they will accept your product or not. You might be thinking that your product is a wonderful product, but in reality, does it gives a supporting help or supporting advantage to the customers who are buying it? Do they really want to invest that much of money in buying your product? That all questions are answered in the test marketing. And it is very well said that if the test marketing is cleared with a good percentage of the score, that means your business or your product is going to rock in the market. This is a very common saying, and this helps you out in getting your business aligned with the profits you are predicting. So that is why your test marketing is also very important aspect of learning the demand forecasting. Now, if we talk about the sales forecasting composite, the third of the qualitative data, so the sales force or the managers or the representatives at the different sales territories are asked the couple of questions, and the data is collected from them, and they give the data on the basis of their own territorial areas, right? So maybe in India, if we talk about to collect the data that whether the product is getting good response or not, or how much do you predict that in upcoming month the sales will be. So maybe from the Rajasthan, the manager will say 20 units will be sold from my area. From Jammu Kashmir, something will be answered. From Kashmir, from your Jharkhand, Uttar Pradesh, your Bengal, your UP, your Bihar, your Maharashtra, your all the parts of your nations, their sales managers will give the numbers as per their understanding, as per their trend analysis, and then the entire data will be accumulated, added on, and then you say that yes, overall at 10 level of India, I might be able to sell up this amount of units in the upcoming month or upcoming trimester. And this is the one of the very common technique which is used by every organization. And it is easy also. You just have to ask the data or the understanding of the sales manager on their territories, so they can easily tell you out, because they are the leaders of that territories. They can tell you out that how much product in upcoming month or year will be sellable in the market, and then the data can be added up. So this is also one of the qualitative methods. If you talk about the advantage of this method, then it is very easy, very simple. You just don't have to do anything. And if you talk about the modern world, you just have to just send an email with maybe format, and all the managers will just punch in the data as per the required rows and columns, and you'll get the data, and then overall just sum it up in the Excel sheet and you'll get the answer. So it is very easy to do the forecasting on this method. But if you talk about the disadvantages, then this requires some special training and education, right? So the people have to be educated. The managers have to be taught up that how to estimate the amount. Then that will be, difficult for us to do it. And even many a time people or the managers do the overestimation or the underestimation just because they want to prove that our area is doing better than another area. They might give you the overestimate that no, we will sell 50,000 units despite the fact that the people are not buying even 2 units. So that is overestimations, or the underestimations can be done. So it affects the overall working, and that is one of the reasons, because they cannot give you the data, supporting data of their prediction as per their understanding. So that is one of the disadvantage, that the estimations are not as per the expectation. They can be over or the underestimated. The fourth and the very important method of your qualitative analysis is your executive method. So executive method is also known as the jury of executive method, in which what happens is that they form a committee. A company forms a committee in which you call the people of different departments, right? So all the organizations have different departments. They have accounts, marketing, HR, research and development, your production, and all. So they call the good people, few people of all different departments. They form a committee, and they are given a form, and they have to fill that form, and on that basis of that collection data, the overall analysis is done. That means you take the help of the jury, or the help of a bench, or help of a committees who have a good experts in it, and they tell you on that their basis of the calculations and predictions that what will be the future demand. It is very easy, it is simple, it is not that difficult, because all the people or the resource key important people who are going to be a part of your committee are within the organization. They can spare a couple of hours and help you out to do it, and you can easily just add up the data again. But if you talk about the disadvantages, it have three basic disadvantages. The first one is that estimates are for the whole market and difficult to separate them to a specific market or product line. So the managers will not be able to tell you out with that ease that whether the shampoo will be sold more or the conditioners will be sold more. They might tell you that this sector of shampoos and conditioner will be better in comparison to selling the hair serum. That's it. But they will not tell that in that also which product line is got. That is difficult thing, right? Then reliability and accuracy of the estimates depend upon how up to date your data. So whether your managers are up to date with the recent trends and the techniques, or the recent awareness of the market, the recent preferences of the customers in the market or not, right? And even the competitors analysis is also done. So if your manager don't know that the competitors are trying up to come up with a new product, and because of which your sales will dip, you will give the wrong data, right? So that reliability and accuracy is also lacking in this executive method. If we talk about the members and easy influence each other point, then definitely you are sitting in a group of people. If someone gives you a good reason and you get convinced, you will change your data, you will change your prediction. So it is like a basis on the influence also, because you are in a team, you get influence, you get to listen the thoughts of many people, and on that basis itself you make many of the calculation. So that is why it becomes one of a very good drawback reason or the disadvantage to just focus on the executive data. And to overcome this point, another technique called Delphi technique was introduced, so that the members don't get influenced with someone else. So the fifth method is your Delphi technique. So what happens is that in this method also we call the experts, but what we do is that no of the experts know that they're a part of this team. That means they all are different, and they all are not sitting together. They all are in their own rooms, they all are in their own chambers. They are given a set of questionnaires, right? And let's say they are given a questionnaire set of one, and we have, let's say, Tom, Dick, and Harry in our channel of experts, and they will be given question set one, right? So Tom will fill in his cabin, Dick will fill in his cabin, and Harry will fill in his cabin. After that, a mediator will collect the feedbacks from them, and then he will analyze. The common points will be separated, and the points who have the discrepancies, let's say the question number 8, 9 were the where these three experts were not meeting up or were not picking the same option. The three have the different views in question number 8 and 9. Again, a new revised questionnaire, question set 2, will be prepared, which will be focusing on these two areas or the parameters. And then this will be again sent it to Tom, Dick, and Harry. They will again fill it out, and then same process will take place until and unless they come up with a conclusion or a common set of a mindset. And this is your Delphi technique. It is a very long technique. it involves huge amount of cost, and it involves huge amount of analysis of data, because you are going to calculate collect the data from the different experts. We have taken an example of 3 people, but there are more than 10 people in a group of Delphi, where all across the globe or all across the area on which you are selling, of the different areas. Maybe one might be from the research, one might be as a normal customer, one can be the executive key managerial person, one can be this normal sales executive, right? And they all will be given the questionnaires, then they will be filling as per their convenience. They will be mailing you back. Until and unless you receive all the replies, you cannot analyze it. Then you will take the time to analyze it. You will take that time to shortlist the areas in which the discrepancies were there. Then you will take time to prepare the revised questionnaire set, and the process will go on. 2 to 3 rounds of these types of questionnaires take place. But the important part is that it helps you out to get a very good and refined answers, right? And these answers are not pressurized or under the influence of any other member. So Tom will not be dominating the thought process of Dick and Harry, or neither though Dick and Harry will be manipulating the Tom's thought process. They all will be doing it with their own judgment and their own observations and understanding. So it becomes really very important to use the Delphi techniques if you want to have accurate data and qualitative, and it is better in comparison to your jury method. And that is why it is really very in these days in the market, and people exclusively like to work with the Delphi methods. And it is very interesting also to understand the data of the different mindset peoples, right? So Delphi is based on the principle that focuses or forecast from the structured groups of individual are more accurate than those of an unstructured group. So unstructured group was your expert jury members group, and Delphi is your structured group in which they give the data. So now let's just talk on the quantitative methods. So we have 3 basic methods in quantitative. We have the trend projection, we have leading indicators, we have consumption level methods. And now let's just talk the one by one about these methods. The first one is your trend projection method. In this, what you do is you analyze the trend which is there in the past, right? And then on that basis, you do the projection. You do the projection maybe on the determining the trend of the consumption or the sales statistics which were there with you last years, or projecting the future consumption or sales by exploring the trend, right? So you might be estimating on some basis or the data which you have collected. Maybe you have seen the trend that in 2005 your sale was 10 units. In 2006 it is let's say 20 units. In 2007 it is let's say 30 units. So you're seeing that there is an increase of 10 units all the time. So when you are predicting the data for 2008, you can easily predict it, and you can say the data will be 40. So this is demand forecasting on the basis of the trend, on the past data or the sales data or the statistics which you have. And then on that basis, an equations is formed, and then you calculate your future amount or the data. Then come the leading indicators. Leading indicators are those indicators which may cause change in the various other methods, right? And let's take an example. Changing in density of the population is leading the variable of the demand for the housing in the lagging variable. So what happens is that you decide on one particular factor which helps you to analyze the sales, and on that factor itself you predict your data, right? And this is your leading indicator method. So you decide one of the indicators or one of the variables which helps you out from the different variables to change the data or change the factors. There are many factors for which your sales might change, so you decide one of them and you stick to it, and then you calculate your working on that basis. If you talk about the third method, which is your consumption level method, it is a method which helps in forecasting of the demand by using tools of elasticity of demand, and especially the concepts of the income elasticity and the price elasticity of demand are used for this purpose, right? So for the consumption, you use the help of your elasticities, and on that basis, you estimate the level. So let us just have a quick recap on what we have studied today with the help of this grid box. And we can see that we have studied lots and lots of techniques this in this video lecture. So we have focused on the demand forecasting. We learned what do we mean by the demand forecasting. Then we differentiated the forecasting on two grounds, that is, or into two parts, that is your passive and active. Then we understood the importance of forecasting. Then the four important levels of forecasting, that is your macro, industry, your firm, and the product line. Then the approach is qualitative, quantitative. Then we discuss the qualitative. There are five basic methods: survey of buyer's intention, testing, sales production, your executive method, and your Delphi. In quantitative, there are three methods: your trend, your leading, and your consumption level. And we also had an overview of the advantages and disadvantages of all these methods which are taken into consideration for the calculation of demand forecasting. I do hope we have understood the demand forecasting. And now let us just have a quick recap with the help of the 10 MCQ questions which I have with me. And this will help you out to analyze the learnings which you have done in this video lecture. So just select all the suitable options as per your understanding from this video lecture. And then later on we can decide that how much you have grasped the concept from this video. So the first two questions are on your screen. Question number 3 and question number 4. Question number 5 and question number 6. Question number 7 and question number 8. And the last two MCQ question number 9 and question number 10. So actually there is omission of, this is A, B, C, and D. So now let's check the correct answers. For question number 1 and question number 2, the correct option is option D. Question number 3, it's C. Question number 4, it's option A. Question number 5, it's option B. Question number 6, it's option A. Question number 7, it's option B. Question number 8, it's option D. Question number 9, it's option C. And for question number 10, the correct option is option A. So I do hope with this video lecture you have understood what is demand forecasting, what are the different levels of forecasting, and what are the different methods associated with the demand forecasting. So thank you everyone for watching this video lecture, and happy learning.